Yes, I figured I'd just whip out a quick video here about flattening in the software world and how I'm far from the only one to notice this. Maybe I'm the only one that talks about it this way. And of course, it's just a video to prep and test the equipment and make sure my levels are right and my lighting's okay and recording's working. Because if you leave a Windows system alone that runs Windows 10 or Windows 11 long enough, it'll change stuff on you. And you won't even know, because why do you check every setting on the machine every time that you use it? I don't know, but you kind of almost do. Along for the days of Windows XP, just had to reload it once a month. Just reload the OS, didn't take long. Put your stuff back on it, problem solved. 2 hours a month. These things, forget about it. More work than they're worth. So what happened in software is called Rapid Application Development, RAD. And the RAD techniques were born out of the success of one company, which is like a 10-person company. That's where Agile comes from, and extreme programming and pair programming and all these weird concepts that, because it was a 10-person company whose goal was to have no middlemen, that should be a hint as to when to use this and when not to, they experimented with different ways of excuse me, of coding. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with experimenting with different ways of coding, and as long as you know what's happening. So you've got seasoned engineers with 10 plus years of experience, who've many of whom, or maybe all of whom, have worked together before in some capacity, or at least they've worked with others on the team already. And they come up with these new methods like Agile. The thing about Agile is that it's very flat. It's almost like you're sitting at the bottom of the stack of how to get things done, right? The structure, the management, the planning, all that stuff. And you're looking at just one piece, which is the coding piece, and saying, well, for coding, you should do this, right? Unfortunately, Agile basically does not work well at all. At all. Now, there's an exception to that where Agile, to be fair, can make a team way better. Unfortunately, it requires a very specific mix. You have to have one or two senior engineers on the team. Excuse me. You have to have junior developers, and you have to have mid-tier developers. You can't have too many junior developers, because if they take up too much of senior engineers' time, the team doesn't improve. The magic is that the senior engineers pull up the junior engineers. The problem with Agile is that it reduces management to a procedure, right? So in the good old days of software, and in fact in running companies, because the Agile idea of managing software is, basically gone everywhere. I worked for a company that they were using Agile and Kanban in every department of the company. And this was a long time ago. Agile had not spread everywhere, but they were using it for everything already. HR, they were using it in the accounting department. It was madness. The thing is, a good manager, and can argue about how hard that is or whether or not that's a thing anymore or all that all day long, but I've seen this happen. A good manager knows how often to meet with each one of their employees and what to ask them about, and when to leave them the hell alone. That's what a good manager knows. Otherwise, you're not a good manager. It's that simple. If you can't do that job, and that's not the only thing, right? But if you can't do that part of the job, you're not going to be a good manager. And that's why we have project managers. Project managers may be very bad at managing people, or some of them can be good. They don't have to be that good, but they're very good at managing timelines. Right. So in the old days, you always had a project manager, and you always had a regular manager to manage the people side. And not always, sometimes they'd be the same person, but not often. And you would need something like Agile, because Agile is mostly just common sense. And the only time it supercharges your team is when you have a small team. You're only worried about the coding portion of that exercise. And at the end of the day, you need a right mix of people on the team. These are all very hard things to accomplish. So, like with everything in life, it's easy to talk about the ideal team, but it's hard to actually get that mix on purpose, especially on purpose. So the on purpose part really matters a lot, right? It's very hard to know if you're dealing with a junior developer, a mid-tier developer, or a senior developer. And we have endless arguments about how to determine that and what that actually means, and then how to figure out if someone fits into one of those categories, and if so, where. Those are complicated discussions that you could have. But either way, you need that mix for it to work. The reason why Agile is flat is because you don't need any management anymore. It's designed to not need middle level management at all. That was its purpose, its final cause, its telos. So that flattens it out. Oh, you don't need project managers because you're managing your time in the Agile process. You don't need a regular manager because you're having stand-ups every day. What's he doing? Oh, the regular manager is just forcing you into meetings that you don't need to have. Oh, the meetings are quick. They're every day. And you're getting exposed to everything that's going on the team. Why do you want that? Oh, the only person who should know every bit of what everyone's doing on the team is the manager. That's part of their purpose. If they don't track that, they're a bad manager. Maybe they have the project manager track that for them. That's fine too. But the team's exposed to what everybody on the team's working on every day. That just slows everybody down. And you've got all these weird rituals and procedures, and they call them that. Call them that. No, nobody. And it's such a flat way to do anything. Like, oh, as a team, we're all just going to meet every day and talk about our struggles and our successes. And then once a week or once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever our agile schedule is, we're going to have a half a day that we blow on planning ourselves as a group. Okay. What's the joke? A giraffe could only have been designed by committee. Yeah. What do you think you're doing? And these are the same types of people that complain about bureaucracy. You're in one and you're creating one for no reason, when instead you could be managed by a bureaucracy, which would actually be good for you, and then get things done. But the bureaucracy is the thing that protects you from having to do the bureaucratic work, which is real work. You can argue about whether or not people do it well, or they know what they're doing, or definitions all day long, but also there's something there that gets done. So you're no longer protected by the bureaucracy. You're no longer being managed. You're kind of managing yourself as a team, only with hard deadlines, dictatorial deadlines. And there's really no benefit to the team at the end of the day, other than you get to go to lots of meetings and lose lots of time and switch between coding and planning and thinking about things that have nothing to do with your part of the project. This is not great. In the old days, people would just get together on their own and do that stuff when it was needed. The senior engineers would check in on the junior engineers. They didn't need a daily meeting to do that. That was not better. Nothing about Agile was better. And we can argue all day long. Software quality has gone downhill since Agile practices were put in place. And part of that is because things like Agile exist and were successful for a 10-person company with experienced engineers who were trying to make sure they never had middle level management problems. Fair enough. Highly successful. Outside of that, probably doesn't work at all and makes everything a mess. People got rid of QA departments. They got rid of systems engineering departments, right? And then was the rise of DevOps. Dun, dun, dun. It didn't come out of nowhere. That was a resurrection, if you will, of something that had been there before all along. But because the structure had changed and things had flattened, you still needed that function done by experts. So, mess, not better. Definitely worse. Definitely worse. So software used to have all these parts and pieces and protections. Software engineers could just sit down and write not just code, but the code on the part of the project they cared about. They didn't have any real involvement with things unless they wanted to that weren't in front of them. And that allows you to focus better. And when you don't have to have daily meetings and parcel out your work effort, then your software design can be more complicated, which in many cases is a better idea. The longer you take to build your software and the more carefully you build it, the more modular and maintainable it can be. If you build it in small segments, all you're doing is moving the complexity. And if you're not a good engineer, or you're not thinking things out at an architectural level, or worse yet, no one's thinking things out at an architectural level, or worse yet, your project manager's doing that for you, because most of them aren't very good. I was a technical project manager. They exist. Some of them are very good, but there's scant few of them, let me tell you. Then what's going to happen is you get bad design, and eventually it's going to bite you. Eventually it's going to bite you. Computers probably 60,000 times faster than they were. All this stuff is slower. All of it. All of it. One of these days, I'll get one of the old XP machines running. I'll show you how fast it is. Printing is faster. Editing is faster. Loading files off of disk is faster, even though disks are slower. And the disk interfaces are slower. It's weird. All of this is the flattening of software and the over specialization of coding. Software engineers don't know that much about computers and computing in general for the most part. They may be really good engineers even, and they just don't know how memory allocation works and what's going on with the Java virtual machine and what a container is and why it matters, right? And why maybe containers are a bad idea. Like, they don't understand any of this stuff. That's why we have security problems. Cybersecurity didn't exist until relatively recently in the industry, because you didn't need it, because everyone designed security in. The reason why you need cybersecurity is because it's not designed in, because there's no design process, because everyone's doing rapid application development for production, which was never its intent. Rapid application development, what you do is you take a simple language like Python. Excuse me. That was one of the original RAD languages, Python. And you mock up a certain section of the software, or maybe even the whole thing, in a very slow, high-level interpreted language, right? And then you put it in front of the customer so that you can find out all the lies they told you when they said, this is how we want our stuff to work. Oh, we don't want it to work that way at all, because that was always the problem. Still the problem in software. Always going to be the problem in software. Always. That gap between what the customer thinks they want and what they actually want. Right up and including, this is the way we do it today. Yeah. I've never been anywhere where the customer was able to tell you accurately and precisely the way they do it today. I know that exists, but it's less than 10% of the companies out there actually know their own procedure. And that's because procedures grow up and change over time, because they adapt to the employees they have and not to the software or systems that they're running. Ever. It's not the way it works in the real world. People have to get done what they have to get done with the people they have, and they make changes to the process. And no one documents anything, so nobody knows what the process is. Fair enough. So ultimately, that's the issue. Ultimately, UML's not going to save you. That's universal markup language, right? None of these things are going to fix it, but flattening software into the developers handle everything, totally terrible idea. Worst idea ever. And that's how software got flattened, much like the rest of the world.